Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, article came out today. It's bad news for the housing crashers
Okay.
who are desperately waiting for not only the housing home prices to be slashed to pennies on the dollar, but interest rates to go to zero, so they could basically for $5 buy a 5-bedroom house on a golf course.
Well, them and everybody else,
Oh.
because we can all buy a 5-bedroom house on a golf course for $5, right?
Okay, so here's the headline from the article. Buying a home in the U.S. is expensive, and that isn't changing anytime soon. So let's talk about a couple key things before we go to the first quote of the article. Buying a home is expensive, but if you already own a home, you're sort of like, who cares, right?
Right.
So let's talk about that dynamic, because we have the old dynamic, which was you bought a house, you lived in it for 5 to 7 years, you sold it, you moved to another house. You moved a lot. With work from home and people not being job transferred, that whole dynamic is gone. So let's talk about that whole thing in general.
Right. So people are staying in their homes longer. We know that according to the Census Bureau, people are staying in their homes now about 13 years, and I think that number is going to probably continue to increase for a while, for a few reasons. One, because we have so many homes that are owned free and clear, so why would you want to take on debt? The second is, of course, because people have low interest rates. Again, why would you want to go ahead and go for a higher interest rate? So those are two reasons why people will stay in their homes longer. And of course, the longer they stay in their homes, the more all of this turbulence that is happening in the housing market doesn't impact them, right? Because they're not purchasing a home. I mean, yes, they still have to pay their property taxes and their homeowners insurance and homeowners association and things like that. But that whole craziness that's happening out there in the housing market doesn't affect them. They are just spectators.
Okay, here's the first quote from the article. But even if there are fewer home buyers on the market and prices have been falling slightly, home prices are still much higher than before the pandemic, and that is unlikely to change anytime soon. In January 2020, the median home price was $290,500, almost 45% less than what the median home price was in May of 2023. There is zero chance median home prices will go back to that. I would say zero, maybe
Right.
0.1%.
Right. So, I mean, look, barring some black swan event, chances are that home prices will pretty much stay steady, not see a whole lot of volatility. There is no reason to believe that we're going to have a whole lot of volatility. Now, I acknowledge that the Fed has been using a sledgehammer when something more surgical would have been preferable as far as the economy, and that they were slow to on the uptake, and they're going to be slow to slow this thing down as far as raising interest rates, and that it is likely that we will see a recession, whether it's this year or next year. But
sometime in the next 10 years, we will see a recession.
We will see a recession. And does that impact people in general? Of course it does. Of course it does. Whether you're a tenant or a homeowner, it impacts you if you're one of the people whose industry is affected. So this is a really big if, because most of us during a recession, we still get up every morning, we still go to work, still go to the grocery store, we still do all the regular things. Relative to the population, very few people are impacted. And then of the ones that are impacted, how many are homeowners versus how many are tenants? So there's a whole big to-do about this. And the idea that somebody who loses their job, whether they're a tenant or a homeowner, somehow is going to be homeless, and if they're a homeowner, they are forced to sell. Well, that's all fine and good, but where are they going to live? And chances are that their mortgage is far less than what they would pay in rent. So a lot of people are going to end up staying in their homes, which is a good thing.
Okay, here's another quote. Basic economic principles would dictate that when demand goes down, prices also go down. If less people are buying homes because the mortgage rates are so high, home prices should be going down. But that is only if supply remains the same, which has not been the case for the housing market. There are 40% fewer homes for sale now compared with before the pandemic. So what we heard a year ago was that the rise in interest rates, some idiots went out there and went, oh, well, home prices are just your payment. So if payment goes up 40%, home prices people have to sell at 40% less because the price of a home is just what a person makes on their payment. So if interest rates go up, people have to tank their prices. So they made these stupid videos talking about 40, 50% price cuts because of interest rates, right? You ready for this? That didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Guess what they're saying now? When interest rates drop, the housing market will crash. And I'm trying to figure this one out. Their logic is all the people who didn't want to sell or not selling put their houses on the market, and then all the flood of those houses coming on the market, because when interest rates drop, they'll sell their house. I'm not sure why they'll sell their house necessarily, just because interest rates drop, right? And then that'll crash the housing market somehow.
Okay, so let's kind of take that argument. Interest rates drop and everybody floods the market with their houses. I'll give you that. But it's not like these people are going to disappear off the face of the earth, right?
No, they're going to sell the house and disappear.
They're going to sell the house and buy another one.
Oh, right.
So then they're just swapping, right? So if they're just swapping, then that really doesn't do anything to the inventory overall. It's just a reshuffling of who's living where. So that's not really helping. Plus, if interest rates drop, then a lot of people that maybe are renting now are going to be able to compete more effectively for these homes. So you're going to see a lot more multiple offers. You're going to see a lot more over list price purchases and that sort of thing. So, I've said this before, the smart money goes out and buys a house when interest rates are, 6.5, 6.25, because you can refinance, in a year or two, versus having to compete with everybody else at 5.5, who those people are going to be paying maybe 10, 15, 20% more for the house because of the competition. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm not saying you should go out and buy a house today. Not at all.
Never said that.
Never said that. And
we said that a decade ago, and people laughed at us and said, shadow inventory, home prices are going to fall.
Right. So, look, are there going to be more foreclosures than we saw last year? Yes, because there weren't any last year, okay? So we are going to have more this year. Are we going to have enough foreclosures to move the needle as far as inventory and as far as prices? Not likely, okay? So, there are a lot of things to kind of keep in mind. I understand what these people are saying, and I don't disagree with a portion of what they're saying, but you have to look at it in context, and that's what we're very big on, is looking at the whole picture so you can understand and make informed decisions.
And not just taking one specific thing and blowing it up into some bigger thing that it is. Like when they say, foreclosures are up 4%, and then you realize that's because they went from 100 a year to 104 a year, right? Okay. Here's another quote for the article. We're at a point in the housing market where we just haven't been building houses for a long time. This is the fundamental problem. We haven't built enough houses. So there's just no adequate supply, says Chris Herbert, managing director of Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies. Even if demand is less, because the fact that interest rates are so high, there's such a shortage of supply, prices can't fall.
Right. So, we've talked about this before a lot. As far as builders are concerned, they can't just build overnight, a whole bunch of houses, right? It takes time. It takes time to purchase the land, get the approval from whatever governing authority to build the community, get things like infrastructure there, like sewer and power and roads and water and all those things. Those all take time. And we're not talking about a couple months. They take a long time. And that's before they ever break ground to actually build anything. So it takes a long time to build homes. The other thing to keep in mind is that the number of homes being built is insufficient to keep up with new household formations. And remember, we have probably a couple 100,000 homes nationwide every year that simply are no longer habitable.
Yeah.
So
they disappear, literally.
Right. Yeah,
they burn down.
Or they're just not habitable. They literally are falling down. And so, so we do need to replace all those. So with all of this in mind, and this isn't even keeping in mind things like immigration and all sorts of other things that we're not even touching on. So all of these people need someplace to live. And I understand that we're building a lot of apartments. And that's great because everybody needs somewhere to live. But most of us, our ultimate goal is to be in our own home that we make payments towards or pay cash or whatever, that is eventually going to be ours. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people who want to own a home and not having sufficient inventory to meet that demand.
Here's the next quote from the article. Though interest rates are meant to cool demand for housing by making mortgages more expensive, it also has an impact on the supply side. Homeowners who may have put their homes on the market by now because, for example, they wanted to upgrade or move closer to family have held off because of higher interest rates. And for the people who say, but the boomers, when they all die, their houses will just flood the market and home prices will crash. The current population in the U.S. is about 346 million. It's expected to be 400 million because we still have a positive birth rate plus immigration, and this is all going to happen in the next 16 to 20 years. So we're going to add 30 something million more people, and 60 million more people, and we're not going to build 60 million houses.
Right. So the other thing to keep in mind is the boomers, well, two things. One, they're not dying anytime soon. If the pandemic didn't knock them out, all of these articles won't knock them out.
The youngest
either.
boomers are in their 59, and most of them are in their 60s and 70s. They're going to be around for 30 years.
Right.
Like a lot of these, late 50s, 60-year-olds, they're not dying like tomorrow.
Right. So remember, life expectancy in the U.S. is somewhere in the 80s. So these people have a ways to go. And all of us are living longer because we're healthier. We are taking better care of ourselves. We've had much better nutrition throughout our lives. We've had much better medical care throughout our lives. So we're all living longer. So even though life expectancy in the U.S., right now is probably somewhere in our 80s, that's probably going to increase over time. It's not going to decrease. And remember, we're living longer. We're living healthier. So we're staying in our homes. Our neighbors are living proof of that. They are living still in the homes that they raised their families in, and they are well into their 70s, almost pushing 80, some of them. Actually, we have one neighbor that's in his mid-80s. So that kind of gives you an idea. These people are not ready to roll over and die. And even when they do, those homes are not being sold. The heirs are hanging on to those homes. They're either moving into them or they are renting them out. We have clients that have done both. Some have rented them out, some have moved into them, but they are not selling them. So do not expect that, when you read the obituary, that house is going to come on the market anytime soon. Not so fast.
And we're not saying home prices will never go down. Mm-hmm. We're just saying there's nothing indicating home prices would collapse. And we're not saying that homes aren't, less affordable than they were a few years ago. Yeah, they certainly are less affordable than they were a few years ago. But, there's almost no question 5 to 10 years from now, homes will be way more expensive. So, people have to just make decisions.
Right. So, for 2023, our argument has been that nationally speaking, home prices are just going to be stable. Now, we recognize that there are places that home prices have gone up 20, 30% this year, particularly in the Northeast. We do recognize that. There are other places that have gone down in the nation, but like I said, nationally speaking, we expect home prices to be pretty stable in 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, so was this useful, interesting? Did we amuse you, entertain you in any way? Yay, we're very happy we did. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the video. Please share the video so we can grow our YouTube family. Leave us comments. Tell us where you're watching from and what's on your mind. Please be nice to one another in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.